Time once again for the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, back from fantasy camp. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll touch on that here in a second. A lot to cover. Get Randy's thoughts on the hitting coaches that have been added. Talk that Chris Bubic is being shopped by the Kansas City Royals. Red Sox, Angels, Outfielders, anyone? Bendan Donovan's name with the Cardinals coming up in connection with the Kansas City Royals. The Royals said to be looking for a platoon partner with Jac Caglianone. Is that really what we're talking about? Is that the right thing to do in Jac Caglianone's development? Salvador Perez contract extension. They made a deal. Found another pitcher, Mason Black, coming over from the Giants. We're talking about it right here, right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. And now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
And thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. And Rany, is that your jersey?
So Soren, there are very few circumstances in which I think it is permissible to wear a sports jersey with your name on the back of it.
Right.
One of them is like when there happens to be a major league ball player whose last name you share. Like, for instance, when Justin Bieber shows up at the World Series wearing a Blue Jays Shane Bieber jersey.
Right.
That's cool. I respect the hustle there.
Yeah.
The other time is when you are at fantasy camp and they put your name. I don't know if I can turn around and show, because of course my name barely fits on the back, but
yeah,
you see here, there's the jersey name and the number 50 after my 50th birthday. So I felt in honor of coming back from camp that I would wear it today. We'll talk all about the fantasy camp excursion on next week's episode.
Yes, as we get into the holiday version of things.
Yeah.
Just peek under the covers. One of us might be gone. So we'll get it done. We'll get it done. That's a little peek under the covers. But you enjoyed it?
I had an absolute blast. I can't say enough about it, and I probably won't. I won't stop saying stuff about it next week. So
yeah, I have no doubt. All right, let's talk about the issues at hand. We basically took time out to do the minor leagues last time, you and I, on a Sunday night. Let's talk a little bit about the news, because there is a number of things that the Royals are in the news on. Let's start with their hitting coach additions. What do you think of Marcus Thames and Connor Dawson being added to the mix?
So the Connor Dawson news obviously came first, and I mean, I could not have been happier. That was a name that I had my eye on for a few months. I believe we brought up his name at least once on the show. I know I had him on my agenda several times. We didn't always get to talk about him. But if you can't get Kevin Seitzer, maybe you can get the guy who has a small but real chance of being the next Kevin Seitzer, a Kansas City native who has just been kind of a precocious hitting savant in his short time as a professional hitting instructor. I mean, he wasn't that long ago that he was the high school hitting coach in one of the local Kansas City area high schools, got hired directly, I believe, into the Mariners farm system. Within a couple of years was the Brewers hitting coach. And for the last 4 years that he was in Milwaukee, the Brewers have had a well above average offense, have prioritized plate discipline, and, dollar for dollar, one of the, best offenses around. I mean, you see them this year winning 97 games. I think they had 3 different rookie hitters place in the rookie of the year voting. Like, I don't know how you can ask for more than that. And when you throw in the fact that the only reason I think he became available in the first place was because he was a local Kansas City guy. I mean, the Brewers GM had a quote saying, they did not want to lose him at all, but he was going home. And that, in a way, that's a good sign. Like, you can always tell the quality of a hire by just how upset the people who are losing him are. And it's, look, it's possible that the Brewers were secretly planning to fire him and are cackling right now that the Royals are suckers, but I don't think that's the case. I think that they were very happy with the job he was doing there. They would have been very happy to keep him there. But the fact that he was a local guy was was an advantage that the Royals could leverage. And that's the thing that you and I were always frustrated about with Kevin Seitzer. It wasn't that, this is a great hitting coach and it's a pipe dream. No, it's a great hitting coach and a local guy, or a guy that certainly has local connections that you could leverage. So Connor Dawson was the closest thing on the market to a Kevin Seitzer, except about 30 years younger. So that's the other thing. If he's good, if he's as good as we think he is, he might be around a while. Let's hope so.
Yeah. Can I also just add to that? Like, we've talked a lot about how cheap Major League Baseball organizations are when it comes to their coaching staffs. Mm-hmm. The Royals seem to be willing to add quantity of coaches. I'm sure that this came with a raise, and this is probably part of the equation as well. To me, it's where you spend a couple $1 million in extra salary for your hitting and pitching coaches. $10 million throughout the entire organization for all your coaches to be better, to have more of them, and to have the best. That is the best investment you can make.
100%. 100%. Yeah, we don't know his salary for sure, but the point is that, like, they did not, certainly this seems like the obvious number one target.
Yeah.
Going into the offseason. And for the fact that they got him means money was not an object. Whatever money it took, that was not an obstacle to bringing him in. So I'm thrilled about that hiring, which I think makes it easier to also accept the Marcus Thames hiring, because at least on paper, it's not a home run, but you can't look at any hitting coach in isolation. This is essentially a three-man operation now, with Zumwalt at the top, and then Dawson and Marcus Thames kind of supplementing. And I think in the role that Marcus Thames plays as the guy with major league experience, I mean, there's some players who are just going to take instruction better from a guy who's actually done it at the major league level. Connor Dawson, I don't believe ever played pro ball. And there might be some guys who are just like, how much can I really trust this guy? If he knows so much about hitting, why didn't he even make it in the pros? Marcus Thames had 115 home runs in the major leagues. So, and he has extensive hitting coach experience, most of it with the Yankees. He's bounced around a bit the last couple of years. And, you look at some of the organizations he was with, not necessarily, something you want to add to your resume, the Marlins and the Angels, but sometimes you just get hired by the wrong organization. That's not a reflection on him. He was with the Yankees for a while when the Yankees had one of the best offenses in the sport. To me, the biggest concern would simply be, is he going to be on the same page as Connor Dawson and Alex Zumwalt? And I have to assume the fact that he was the last of the two, the second of the two to be hired, is in itself a good sign, because they already had Connor Dawson in-house. They obviously have had Zumwalt for a while. They're not going to hire a guy unless he's on board with the operation, on board with the message that those other two guys are preaching. Because the absolute worst thing you can happen is if you have hitting coach one says one thing and hitting coach two says another thing, and they're not the same thing, right? If his job is to, I don't want to say toe the party line, but to sort of, expound upon the principles the organization is teaching, but to do so from a position of authority, a position of, I've done this before, I can relate to the struggles you're having with doing this or in implementing this to the major league hitters, I think he can be a real asset. So the overall triumvirate now of those three, Zumwalt, Dawson, and Thames, I'm on board with. Let's go. Let's go. I think this is exciting. The only thing left, really, I mean, there's two things. One is obviously they need to replace Zach Bove and the assistant pitching coach. The same thing I said about Connor Dawson, was a good hire. You have to compliment the White Sox, after hiring so many ex-Royals that we were secretly kind of like, not too upset to let go. This time they took a guy from the Royals that I think nobody in the organization wanted to lose. Zach Bove has been a huge part of the pitching operation here the last couple of years. So they need to replace him with somebody, hopefully from within. I would always prioritize from outside the organization, not because you don't trust your own people, but I think just having a constant influx of new voices, new perspectives, people from organizations that might have come up with new ideas you haven't considered. I think that's a healthy thing to have, on a consistent basis. So that's one. And then the other thing is the actual director of the minor league hitting operations, which was, the fourth role, which I believe that was the role Drew Saylor had before he was let go. That's the one hitting coach, major hitting coach position that we've not seen filled. That's the one, like, for instance, if Marcus Timms had been hired in that role, I think I'd have been more concerned because that guy's overseeing everything. I like him in a supplementary role, but I'm very curious to see who they bring in on the minor league hitting side. Hopefully somebody who, again, corroborates and agrees with the voices they already have, but somebody who has experience and a track record of success in doing that role.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, thumbs up, right? We're excited.
I'm very pleased with where the Royals are right now. Assuming they fill these two roles with acceptable candidates, like, I will be as happy with the kind of the infrastructure that they have in terms of player development, hitting coach, pitching coach, obviously scouting, and people in charge of the draft, as I've been in at least a decade and maybe longer.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. Let's I think probably best to grab a break right here. We want to get into Kris Bubic's name, all the trade talk. That's what we're going to do next. We'll do it right after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, Rany, let's talk about Kris Bubic's name being thrown around. I think we've made it pretty clear this is probably the right path, right? Like, to me, if you're a team out there, you're either going for a guy that has big upside, ace-like stuff without having to pay him a lot of money. That's where Bubic is coming through the arbitration run. Or you're looking for controllable years. And so Bubic or Cameron figure to be the guys that are the most – I mean, everyone will want Cole Reagans, but they're not going to want to pay the price the Royals would ask for in a Cole Reagans, right? So, you come down to Bubic, like, okay, we're getting 80% of Cole Reagans in Kris Bubic, but we're not having to take on a lot of salary. Or they want Noah Cameron. Right now, Bubic is the name we're hearing. I think this is the name the Royals should be shopping. If you're not going to sign him, and I don't think you should – based on the injury history, then you should be flipping him for more assets.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear his name only because I assumed teams would want to have a complete assurance that his shoulder was, in good shape before trading for him. And we've talked about him a couple of times, and each time I said, I see him as a definite trade candidate in spring training once he has established that his arm is healthy. But if teams are satisfied enough with his medical records, the nature of the injury, that they think, he's 100%. And obviously, it might help a little bit that Cole Reagans had a similar situation, was a little bit ahead of him in terms of the injury track. He got injured earlier and came back in September looking completely back to normal. Probably gives, lends some credibility to the notion that Kris Bubic just needed another month or two and he would have been fine. And with a whole offseason, he'll be 100%. But if teams are willing to pay the price now, and you don't have to, worry about the risk of him not being 100%, or you'd rather just make a move now so you can start off your offseason having this trade in place rather than trying to, make other moves with the uncertainty of whether or not you can move him later. I think to me, it's a no-brainer because you're not moving Reagans because he's too good. You're not moving Lugo and Waka. They've said this, and it would be I think, a bad, just from a relationship standpoint, to trade guys so soon after giving them extensions. So it's basically Bubic and Cameron. Those are the two guys you and I talk about. The only other options would be someone like Ryan Bergert or Stephen Kolek. Bergert, I think the problem with him is, the upside we saw from him is undeniable, but the fact that he has an forearm tightness adds a level of uncertainty there, I think, even more than the shoulder. So, I mean, he might be the next guy you would consider, but I just think there's too much uncertainty there. So, to me, Bubic and Cameron are the obvious candidates. There's a scenario, if you want to be aggressive and you believe in your pitching development, where you could trade both of them. But certainly, if teams are interested in Chris Bubic, and you got 1 year of control here, so you're probably unlikely to move him for a bunch of like minor league assets to replenish your farm system. But when you clearly have a need for a hitter, at least in the short term, to me, it just seems like almost too perfect a situation to not trade him for an outfielder who can hit, outfielder and possibly a second baseman, but somebody who can hit, who has 1 or 2 years of club control as well.
And we hear the usual. I mean, it seems the Royals danced with the Red Sox. I was told that the Red Sox were asking for Cole Reagans at the trade deadline when the Royals were talking outfielders, and that wasn't going to happen. But again, we're hearing Red Sox, we're hearing Angels. Are we going to do this or not? Right? Like I got a bunch of off-color locker room humor jokes, I would say, right here that would be real fitting for the time, but they seem to be dancing with the same teams about the same names. Does it finally get done? Like, come on, guys. Like, let's go figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, so the problem with the Red Sox is their guys are almost too good. All right. The Red Sox quietly have kind of a ridiculous outfield. I mean, they have 4 guys this year, 4 outfielders who had 3-win seasons. You can only play 3 at a time. So to have 4 in one outfield, one of whom was a rookie, 21-year-old rookie who played 71 games in Roman Anthony, right? Like, he didn't win Rookie of the Year, but if there was one rookie that you would want on your fantasy team or whatever, on your real life team for the rest of his career, Roman Anthony is probably number 1. But, Jarren Duran, Sedan Rafaela, and Wilyer Abreu, all very good players, all of whom have at least 3 years of club control. All right. I think Duran has 3 years. I think Rafael and Abreu have 4. So, I mean, I would happily, I would be thrilled to have any of those guys in the Royals outfield. I don't know how you make that work with Chris Bubic. Maybe you can make that work with Noah Cameron plus. I don't think you're going to get, any of those guys for Noah Cameron by himself, but 6 years of Noah Cameron for, I know Duran is the one guy you've heard the Red Sox being willing to actively shop. And he did have an off-field incident, which certainly was bad publicity, if nothing else, for him, and maybe made people question him a little bit. But like 2 years in a row, he has just been a fantastic player, both offensively and defensively. I mean, quietly, he's a very good defensive outfielder. You can play him in center or in left. And the 3 years makes him maybe a little less expensive than the other guys, but it would take a lot. If you can get it for Noah Cameron and Blake Mitchell, maybe, like that's the kind of value that you're probably looking at. But a 3-year solution, he's 29 years old. He's the oldest, I think, of the bunch as well. But he's a good enough player. I would strongly consider. I just don't know how you get any of the other guys from that team. And Rafaela is an incredible defensive center fielder who has on-base issues. So even above and beyond the talent, he's basically a much better version of Kyle Ismail, but he doesn't really solve the problems that the Royals have. You'd rather have a higher on-base guy who could maybe play in the corners. So to me, Duran fits the most of the Red Sox guys.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And I think that's probably, and I think you shaped it up like with how good they are. He's probably the least valuable because of the last year of club control, the age. And so that probably makes it the best compatibility with the Royals as far as what is, because I don't know that the Royals would you be content with Blake Mitchell and Noah Cameron for Duran? Would you be content with Blake Mitchell and Chris Bubic?
Bubic and Mitchell, yes, because I mean, 1 year versus 6. That to me, that's probably what I would start the offer with. I'd have to strongly think about Cameron and Mitchell. I mean, a lot of it, Cameron to me, and if the Royals trade Noah Cameron on some level, I'll credit them in the sense that he is a local guy, and emotionally it would be difficult to trade a guy like that, but you have to be transactional in this business. And I do think the Royals have, for many, many years, they were scarred by the decision to trade David Cone when they did, way back in 1986. It turned out to be arguably the worst trade in Royals history, just purely on a talent level, trading a future, all-star, Cy Young winner, et cetera, for Ed Hearn, a catcher who played, I don't even remember if he played 50 games with the Royals in his career. But on top of that, the fact that David Cone was a local kid, one of the best players to come out of the Kansas City area of his generation, I think that it hurt doubly so. And they've always been looking for the next Kansas City area sensation, and suddenly they have two of them in Carter Jensen and Noah Cameron. So not that I want to trade Noah Cameron, but like if you're looking at assets that the Royals can afford to move but also have value on the market, Cameron has to be very, very high on that list. But also with Cameron, like the risk there is that just you give up a solid number 3 starter for 6 years. He doesn't have a David Cone upside. I don't think you're ever going to worry that you're trading away a future Cy Young winner. But at the same time, his floor is very high too. Like there's a value in just simply his safety. The question to me is Blake Mitchell. Like, if you actually think Blake Mitchell is still going to be a star, then that's too much to give up.
Yeah.
But if you have some reservations about that, and the other team prices him like a star, I mean, he's playing in the Arizona Fall League. He's had some good moments down there. So if you can sell high on Blake Mitchell, or I wouldn't say high because he's coming off a lost season, but if you can sell higher now, if you think he's a declining stock, this is the time to make a move with him. And that's the kind of return you want. You're not trading Blake Mitchell for, a 1-year guy. You need a long-term solution to move off a guy like that.
Yeah, agreed. It's I think now is the time to use your system and finish off the big league club. And you've got the catching depth. It's what we've been asking for. It's what if they'd have moved MJ Melendez back in the day, how thrilled would everybody be at this moment?
Exactly.
But even if Blake Mitchell goes on to be a good player, you've got Carter Jensen. You just signed Salvador Perez. So that to me makes it even easier to move on. And you've got another catching prospect in the system in Ramon Ramirez.
Right.
So if Blake Mitchell can be worked into a deal, you do it. And for me, his scary, and I know the power was robbed because of the hamate bone, but just his scary, weird, no batting average, all on base. I wouldn't trade for him if I were, somebody else. But if somebody's going to give me value for him, out the door. Are you? And again, we're not scouts, but just off guys who look at numbers of prospects and hear about prospects, would you put your name next to Blake Mitchell's going to be an everyday catcher in the big leagues?
So it's bizarre for me of all people to say this, that the Royals have a prospect who might actually be too patient at the plate, but Blake Mitchell might actually be too patient at the plate. But I don't want to put like even less than my usual certainty about a prospect. I have to lower my certainty on Blake Mitchell just because this past season was where he really, I going into spring training, I thought this was going to be a make or break year for him. And then he broke a hamate bone in his hand. I mean, that happens. And it's unfortunate, but I can basically throw out his numbers for this year. You look at what he did in 2024, he hit 220 or 230, but tremendous on base and, 18 home runs as well. Like the pop was there, the contact, but the contact aside from the home runs was not the quality of contact I like to see. If the scouts were not high on him, I would say this is one of those guys who, can dominate the low minors, but is never going to be a major league hitter. But the scouting reports on him remain high. And that's why it's like, I certainly don't want to write him off as a future major leaguer or even a future star. But it's for that reason that I'm willing to move him, and then again, the Royals have an excess there. I mean, one of the advantages with the Red Sox or any of their outfielders is you have the luxury of knowing that if they move one of these guys, it doesn't necessarily mean they're moving him because they know something you don't about the player. It's because they have 4 outfielders. Like they're in a position where they have an excess at one position and a need at another. The Royals happen to have an excess at pitching and a need in the outfield. Like, sometimes teams just fit together well. And I think that would be the case in this situation. It's just a matter of making the years of control kind of work on both sides.
Yeah. No. And, let's hope it happens, right? The sooner the better.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the kind of the dream scenario, I think, in terms of just getting an outfielder. The other the team you mentioned, obviously the Angels. And there, the problem is I'm not sure the players are good. Like Taylor Ward has been someone the Royals have been dancing with for 2 years now. And I've never been on the Taylor Ward train. And maybe that's, my fault, because I mean, he did hit 36 home runs this past year. Like, he would have been a great solution in left field for the Royals, but he also struck out 175 times and he hit 228. So even though he walks, he had 317 on base. He's not a good defensive left fielder. Like, Taylor Ward, right? This past year was basically what the Royals were hoping they were going to get from Hunter Renfroe in his first season, right? Like a guy who hits enough home runs that kind of papers over his weaknesses in other parts of his game. Taylor Ward he's coming off, one of his best seasons at the plate at age 31. He's going to be 32 next year. 32-year-old corner outfielders. Like, I just say those words. 32-year-old corner outfielder. I'm already moving back from the table.
I'm with you. If you're talking to the Angels, it needs to be about Joe Adell, right? And that's going to be expensive. But that's where you need to go. If they'd acquired Taylor Ward when we first started hearing his name at the Royals 2 years ago, and he'd had the seasons he's had the last 2 years, we would say nice job, right? But exactly. You've now let 2 of his better years go by. There's no point in getting it on unless it's extra. Look, Bubic for him. What's the contract on Ward, by the way?
Ward has 1 year of club control left, and he's ARB eligible. He made $7.8 million this past year, so he'll probably make around 10, maybe even 10 to 12. I mean, it's 1 year. He'll make a few million more than Bubic. It's not enough to move the needle, I think, that much.
So it's 1 year for 1 year.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a fair trade.
Right. I mean, Bubic for Ward would not be the worst trade in the world. Worst case scenario. Okay. Well, you lost opportunity with Chris Bubic. I will say this for Chris Bubic, and this is something that everyone, especially the Royals, should keep in mind. If Bubic is healthy and gets through a good, has a solid season, he's young enough. He almost certainly will be a player that whatever team acquires him is going to offer a qualifying offer to. Which means either you're guaranteed to get him for another year or sign him to an extension, or you're getting a first-round pick. Taylor Ward is not, even if he has a good year, I don't think you're going to offer him a 1 year, $25 million contract. You know what I'm saying? Just simply because of the age. And this is one of the reasons why it's, if you've got a guy going into the last year of his contract, it behooves you to, if you're going to probably trade him before the season as opposed to at the trading deadline, because a player traded in mid-season, the qualifying offer does not transfer to his new team. In order for that qualifying offer to transfer, you have to be traded before, I think, opening day. So that first round pick that is potentially attached to Bubic. I mean, any team willing to trade for Chris Bubic is thinking about him as a good enough pitcher in 2026 that he's going to be worthy of a qualifying offer in 2027. So for that reason alone, I would not trade Bubic for Ward straight up, because even if they're equally valuable, Bubic is going to give you a first round pick potentially, and Ward will not.
Yeah.
Joe Adell is a more interesting case. Now, on the one hand, actually, just based on wins above replacement, Ward had a better season than Joe Adell. Like, they actually almost eerily similar seasons. Like, Taylor Ward hit 228, I think. Yeah, 228. Joe Adell hit 236. Ward hit 36 home runs. Adell hit 37. Taylor Ward struck out 175 times. Adell 151 times. But Adell actually walked a lot less. He only had 33 walks. His on base was lower. And whereas Adell is a center fielder, or at least was a center fielder this year, was not good at it at all. He is best as a corner outfielder. Now, if you trade for him, move him to left field, and he's only 27 years old and not 32, and you get 2 years of club control and not 1. Like, I've liked Joe Adell for a while, but I kind of liked him as the post-type sleeper you could get, at a discount, because he was a great prospect who just never kind of put it together in the major leagues. The prospect sheen is off of him, but he also kind of finally established himself as a quality major leaguer this year. So I don't think you're going to get him at a discount. 1 year of Bubic versus 2 years of Adell, but Bubic may be the better player. He has the qualifying offer. I don't know that you can get the Angels to make that trade straight up. I think if I'm the Royals, I definitely do that.
Yeah.
You might have to throw in something small. but it should be something small.
Well, doesn't it feel like if the Angels are talking to the Royals that they would be asking about Noah Cameron more than they would be asking about Bubic? Bubic makes more sense for the team that says, we're ready, we're this one guy away. Right. And so he Bubic to the Red Sox, Cameron to the Angels seems more the direction they would be talking, from my point of view.
I agree, except that the Angels are the Angels for a reason. I'm not sure that logic always dominates over there. So, just because it makes more sense for them as an organization to go after the club control guy. Look, if they want Bubic, they think they're going to make a push for it in 2026. Great. The question would be, if they're playing for next year, are they willing to give up one of their best hitters potentially for next year as well? So I don't exactly know what the Angels want, but it's certainly a discussion you have to have and find out just how serious they are. And if for whatever reason they're not sold on Joe Adell, and they really, they've really got a hankering for some Chris Bubic, great. Let's talk.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. What do you think about Brendan?
So Bendan Donovan, right? So to me, I mean, a Bubic for Donovan trade would almost make too much sense, except that the reports are the Cardinals are not actually, they are thinking, because the Cardinals, even in an off season, are a little more rational and are thinking more long term, and they don't want the 1 year guy. But Bendan Donovan, so this is a guy who has 2 years of club control. He's almost like a better version of Jonathan India in every single way, right? Like India might have a little bit more power, although once you took India out of Cincinnati, the power went down. Donovan's hit 10, 14, and 11 home runs the last 3 years. He's got a career 411 slug, but he's also a real on-base guy. And unlike India, he doesn't strike out much at all. Like, his career high in strikeouts is 81. So he has a career 282 batting average. Like, he's a high batting average guy. His walk rate isn't quite as high as India's, but it's good enough. He has a career OBP of 361. All right, so you're getting a high OBP guy with decent power who plays a lot of second base. Not a great defender, but about probably average, better than India. And unlike India, has actually proven he can play left field before the trade. Like, he's not a great defensive left fielder, but he's adequate. Whereas India, we didn't know when we hoped he could when we traded for him, and we found out we were wrong. If you were right-handed, I'd say he's almost perfect. But like all the Red Sox guys we talked about, he is left-handed, and that to me is not sufficient in and of itself to not trade for the guy. Like, if he fits everything else you're looking for, but I do like Bendan Donovan as a player. Would you get him? And again, for Chris Bubic, I think 1 year versus 2, again, the qualifying offer, I think that the value is close. I just don't get the impression that they have a lot of interest in Bubic specifically. But I'd want a lot more than Bendan Donovan for 6 years of Noah Cameron. So he's a player I'm intrigued by. I think the on-base aspect of it is something the Royals could really use. I know the positional versatility is something that they like. It does, once again, bring up the conundrum of what did the Royals do with Jonathan India and keep him around for the year? Because if you trade for a guy who can play second base and left field, you still have India. You still have Michael Massey. And now you've got 3 guys for 2 positions. Donovan presumably will play every day, although, you could platoon Donovan. Like, he does have large platoon splits. And maybe that's what you do. Maybe you platoon him with Jonathan India, which would make India a very expensive platoon player. So it's not a slam dunk just from the standpoint of the roster, but a player this versatile whose offense fits the Royals' needs as well as he does. And the price tag shouldn't be exorbitant because it's only 2 years. I'm in favor of a deal. It's just a matter of what it takes to get them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the key here that I'm hearing is there's a lot of possibilities, right? A lot of directions that they can go, and it seems like they're going to land on one of them. Like, something feels like it's inevitable. All right, we want to get into the comments about Jac Caglianone needing a platoon partner. Also, Salvi's contract extension. We'll do it right after you hear from our friends at Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Don't forget, they're taking orders right now for the holidays. That's right. They can cater your holiday party, your holiday festivity. Italian Delight. Find them online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta, their famous lasagna, and classic chicken Alfredo. always hit the spot. If you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's get into this point. You know, when a lot of the rumors about the teams that the Royals are talking to came in a story that also included the statement that they're looking for an everyday corner outfielder. They're looking for a platoon partner for Jac Caglianone. A lot of people are like, what? What, a platoon player already? First of all, he'd be the heavy side of the platoon, being left-handed. And can I just say, that's fine. Like, it's okay to break a guy in. Like, he needs a pick-me-up. And if the pick-me-up is not having to see the toughest, pitchers that he could face, like, sign me up. Like, I most people are taking this as bad news. I take it as the Royals understanding. I do take it as that they're not sold on the fact that he's ever really going to crush left-handed pitching. That's going to be an issue. I do take it as that, but that to me is at least a club that's being honest and not saying, well, we're just going to hope it works out. They're looking at it going, not so much against the left-handed side, and we're trying to win some baseball games. So I actually like the fact that they're looking for a platoon partner. Now, I think how you do that and how you fit it into the roster and how the whole roster comes together when you've already got Salvi and Carter Jensen down there and you've got Benny Pasquantino and, kind of a logjam. And you just mentioned potentially adding another logjam at second base with everything that's going on. I do think that gets trickier, but just the concept of having a platoon partner for Jac Caglianone, I think overall I'm going to call it a strength.
Yeah, I like the idea of you bring in somebody and you're calling him the platoon partner for Caglianone when if in reality he's also just kind of an insurance plan, right? Like a guy who could play every day, like if Cags just turns out he's just not ready for the major leagues, and just to kind of give even Caglianone some reassurance that like he's not going to be asked to shoulder the load 162 games right out of the chute. I want to point out, Caglianone does not have any history of a significant platoon split. It's only been, one season, one full season as a pro. He actually hit better against lefties than righties in the major leagues. Granted, better meant he hit 180 with a 631 OPS against lefties, but that was if he a 631 OPS against lefties from a left-handed hitter is actually not the worst thing in the world. The problem is I think he had like a 487 OPS against righties. In AAA before he got called up, I think he was pretty even in terms of his overall numbers. So there's really not much evidence he needs a platoon partner. So I'm taking this more as just kind of a statement of we just want to have a floor in right field so that we don't get caught with our pants down like we did this year when we went in with MJ Melendez and Hunter Renfroe as our corner outfielders. So I'm fine with that on a CAG specific basis. But there is a bigger point here, which is something I don't think you and I have talked about very much. This year, the Royals as a team had a 720 OPS against right-handed pitching, which is fine. In fact, that might have been above league average. They had a 659 OPS against left-handed pitching. That 61-point difference, there were 61 points worse against lefties. That is the biggest gap the Royals have had in terms of hitting lefties versus righties. Like the last time they were this bad against lefties relative to how they were against right-handers was way back in 2004. Like it's been 20 years since they had a 60-point OPS split. Lefties versus righties. There was one year where they mashed lefties. I think it was 2017, I want to say, but like it was, or 2016. But the year before and the year after, they actually hit better against righties. So I think it was a one-year fluke. What makes this one more meaningful is 2024, they also hit 50 points better against righties than lefties. So 2 years in a row, the Royals have had a left-right split in favor of hitting right-handers better by at least 50 points. So hitting left-handed pitching is an absolute problem. And, it's interesting, that JJ talks about bringing in a platoon partner, because they tried to do that this past season multiple times. They started the season with Mark Canha on the roster.
Yeah.
They traded for Randall Grichuk midseason. Like, those were guys brought in specifically to hit lefties, and they were corner outfields. Like they had no defensive value. They were there. They had one job on the team, just hit against lefties. And unfortunately, they both were not up to the task at all. But like, it's kind of surprising, you would think, because a team that's got like Bobby Witt and Maikel Garcia and Salvador Perez would have hit better against lefties. Witt and Garcia both mashed lefties pretty good. Witt hits everybody, but Garcia hit lefties quite a bit better than righties. Salvador Perez, and this is kind of surprising, for his career, he has very, very small platoon split, which is kind of shocking when you think about just like how vulnerable he is to like sliders from right-handed pitching. Like, it just seems like it's his kryptonite. He just has no defense against it. But there's nothing that Salvador Perez is worse against than a good slider. There's probably no pitch he's better against than a hanging slider. Like, he absolutely, that's why he always swings at them, because if it happens to hang, he will bang. And fastballs from right-handers, he crushes. So he actually did not hit lefties. In fact, this year, I think he hit lefties worse than righties as well. And then the big problem the Royals have in this department is Vinny Pasquantino has a fairly enormous platoon split, not just for 2025, but for his career as a whole. I want to see he's got a OPS like 120 points worse against lefties versus righties. And he's definitely vulnerable, just anecdotally, from breaking stuff low and away from left-handers. And a lot of lefties are, because you see fewer left-handed pitchers growing up than right-handed pitchers. If you're a right-handed hitter, you'll still see a ton of right-handed pitching. But if you're a left-handed hitter, you just don't get the opportunity to bat against same side pitching as much. And so left-handed hitters generally do have larger platoon splits. And I'm willing to bet if there's, every year Vinny seems to be working on one thing to improve upon. We saw it with his defense a lot this year. I'm hoping that he is hard at work right now, specifically on hitting left-handed pitching, because against right-handers in 2025, he was an all-star. He hit, let me get the exact numbers here for you: 281, 346 on base, 511 slug, 854 OPS, or 856 OPS. That's perfect. He had a 614 OPS in 2025. That's a huge difference. So the Royals, in very small sample, Jac Caglianone hit lefties better than Vinny Pasquantino in 2025. So the idea of bringing in a platoon partner for someone, just somebody to hit lefties, I think is a bigger point than it's specifically for Caglianone. It should not be difficult to find a corner outfield type, somebody who can DH or just fake it in the outfield and hit lefties. There are tons of guys out there in any given offseason that you can sign for a 1 year, $4 million contract or whatever and do that role. But I do think it's very important, especially when you consider the major addition to the roster to the lineup for next season from within is Carter Jensen, who's left-handed. It's not going to be solved internally. So I think the concept of just bringing in a right-handed, if not two right-handed bench bats, is very, very sound.
I was big on, if you're going to extend Salvador Perez, part of the conversation needed to be, we're paying you to not play you as much. Do you think that message got sent? What do you make of the contract extension of Salvador Perez?
I certainly would like to think so. I like the contract. He was already essentially under contract for next year. He had the option they were obviously going to pick up. So a 2-year extension is really just a 1-year extension. They gave him another year for roughly the same amount of money. I think it's an additional $11.5 million. Which, with some of the deferrals in that contract, it's actually, probably less than that in terms of what the Royals are paying out. So I think they got a good deal. I was worried that they were going to commit to him for 3 years or probably not more, but I was worried about it more of a 3-year commitment. 1 additional year, even if he starts to fall off next year, he's Salvador Perez. You can put up with that for a year. And this does not preclude him continuing if he proves that even at age 37, he can still be productive behind the plate. But I think they're going to probably go year to year with him after that. Like, as long as he is capable of playing Major League Baseball, I suspect he will be a Royal catcher, right? So, but they didn't have to commit too long-term for him, but at the same time, they're keeping him in the fold. He's going to keep the captain on his jersey, and presumably he can see the writing on the wall that the Carter Jensen era is upon us. They can share that role for the next 2 years in some capacity. Each one of them will share it. And he's the captain for a reason. I think if he wants to do what's best for the team, he's going to slowly give up some of the catcher role. I mean, look, he hasn't been a full-time catcher for the last couple of years because Freddie Fermin has been so good. He's been DHing a lot already. So if they take away 20 or 30 starts a year, even if it's at DH, and he still catches 80, 90 games a year, but only DHs 40 times a year, I think the Royals will be in a better spot for it. And I think he can still be productive for the next 2 years.
Finally, Mason Black. I don't think we can just go, they got another Cole Reagans.
No, not another Cole Reagans.
If they go for a guy, you figure they see something in him,
Absolutely. So Cole Reagans, no. James MacArthur, maybe. Right? I mean, that's the way I look at this. Like, my rule. Never, ever, ever give up on a pitcher until you've tried him in the bullpen.
Right.
And Mason Black has never really been tried in the bullpen. I mean, he made one appearance this year for the Giants in the majors. It was in the bullpen, but he threw 4 innings, faced 19 batters. He was, either a long reliever or coming in after the opener. In the minor leagues, I think he made 24 starts this year. He relieved 6 times. Like, you want to see what that guy can do, because his pitch ability is good. His breaking stuff is good. His average fastball velocity, 92.5 this year, I think, as a starter. Let's say, just the natural move to the bullpen can get that up to 94. If the Royals think they can unlock something in his delivery and maybe get that to 95, okay, now you got a reliever who throws 95 with good secondary stuff. And the cost was a 40-man roster spot. I mean, like, the cost here is nothing. But the Royals have, I think, earned the benefit of the doubt that if they acquire a pitcher, they probably see something in him. And to me, it's very easy. If you acquire a starter, they see that there's something that this guy, we can do with him in the bullpen and make him, a valuable asset. And if he's a good 6th inning option, great. If he can be, again, MacArthur is almost the best case scenario in terms of, he was a closer for a year before his elbow, went to pot. But if he can be like a John Schreiber type, and just pitch the 6th inning, and here's the thing. If he comes to spring training and they can't fix him, they can let him go. Like, there's no, they gave up nothing here except time and opportunity. And they had opportunity because they had multiple 40-man roster spots open. It's not like they're at, filled to 40 and they're, they had to let somebody go. If they end up making trades or signing some free agents, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if they designate Mason Black for assignment in December, if they get somebody better. Right. I mean, that's the level of investment they've made here. They can let him go at any time, but the Royals have earned the benefit of the doubt in my mind that they see something in Mason Black, and maybe they can get something out of him.
And the hope is that, we know that you bring guys to Kansas City and they pitch better, right? They seem to get new weapons and they tend to be better. The hope, to come full circle all the way back around to where we were when we started this, is that you get there with the hitters as well. That Connor Dawson is the guy that can get you there with the hitters.
100%.
Because, you can, Andrew Vaughn, great example there with the Brewers. So let's hope it's there. Listen, you can always support the Kaufman Corner podcast by supporting our great sponsors, like our friends at Italian Delight. As I mentioned, they're taking their holiday orders right now. If you've got a big office party, any kind of catering, they're happy to help you out. You can find them online at ItalianDelightKS.com. They brought true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. Our friends at North Plain Injury Law, if you've been hurt in an accident or at work, if you have a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400 HURT, serving KC for more than 40 years and voted the #1 accident lawyers in Kansas City. And of course, our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. One contractor, all things parking lots. Don't have liability problems going on in your parking lot. I'll let Gann Asphalt and Concrete solve them. They've been solving those parking lot problems since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner.